we go. Deck 78.
Welcome back to Deck 78. I'm Mark Altman. I'm here with
DAREN DOCHTERMAN,
Ashley Miller,
and special guest Steve Melching.
And we are going back in time instead
of... You're a regular.
You're a
All
Deckspert.
Right. Semi-regular Deckspert.
You gotta be careful how you pronounce it, though.
Instead of going into the future, we're going into the past. Or are we? It's never clear exactly when the Land of the Lost takes place, but we got to sit down recently with Sid Krofft and talk about the origins of the Land of the Lost, as well as the entire Kroftverse, the Krofft cinematic universe.
Yes.
Right down to McDonald land.
Steve, this was a very inexpensive show that is still beloved by kids and adults who act like kids the world over. What is it about Land of the Lost that endures, even after a failed feature film that is disowned by virtually everyone involved?
Oh boy, I saw that movie, the feature film, on my honeymoon, for crying out loud. Or not on my honeymoon, on my wedding weekend. It was playing in the town where we got married, and I loved the TV show so much as a kid. And I like Will Ferrell. I think he's hilarious. So we went and saw the movie, and it was not good. But the TV show, it was such a unique show in that it's not just kind of the Jurassic Park of its era where you have, suddenly contemporary, modern day characters in a land of living dinosaurs, which is cool enough on its face, because the idea of seeing and interacting with real dinosaurs is something I think is really appealing, especially to kids and young boys in particular, or at least when I was growing up in the 70s. But on top of that, it was a really smart, weird, sometimes scary, creepy show. It had a lot more going on in it than just running away from dinosaurs, and this whole mythology of the pylons and the slee stack and all this stuff. It was like the original Lost in a way, where it's just true. really different.
Yeah. I'd love to see it be remade, because I think what you said, if you could bring to it the kind of writing and production values of something like Lost, I just think it's great, because it feels like, who doesn't love dinosaurs? But at the same time, there's that whole futuristic element with the slee stacks. And that's what I want from my Jurassic Park. I want Land of the Lost. I want more Land of Lost and less of the Michael Crichton of it all.
It would be interesting. There was a reboot in the 90s. That wasn't extremely successful. But I think one that is done absolutely seriously and with proper production value would make something, I think, very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's too bad that the decision was made to make it a comedy, because it's such a... I think that's what's compelling. It's like when we watch TV, we could see beyond the production values. It's like we saw something in the concept that was really intriguing.
It's Chaka when the walls fell.
Yeah,
it's like we need to make the movie of the show we thought we were watching.
Right.
When we were kids.
Right.
Yeah, that's well put.
Maybe you guys remember the specific episode. I don't remember the details, but there was an episode, it might have even been a two-parter, where there was this other character that was like made up of points of light that was walking, and it was so weird and creepy. I'm like, I'd never seen anything like that.
Well, we got Sid to for the first time kind of admit that they were on drugs when they made these shows, which he's always been reluctant to say.
But he was not so reluctant.
No. In fact, Ashley, it was kind of a bizarre panel. I think you hear very little of the Decksperts on this panel.
No, look, you have to get up pretty early in the morning or be extremely well programmed to manage to just completely shut down all three Treksperts.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never, ever seen Mark Altman lose a bout with an interviewee. I've never seen that at all. And this was just, nope.
There was no
Mark,
stopping Sid.
You got your ass kicked. That was just...
But I was also behind a slee stack. Like
Yes,
they
true.
put the slee stack in front of me. So it was very hard. So I'm like ducking to the left, ducking to the right, trying to...
It wasn't a real slee stack. There was a bust of a slee stack on the table.
Yeah,
just to let everybody know that no one was harmed.
No
Right.
slee stacks are harmed into making his panel.
But it was fun.
But what else fascinated me about the show was, I'd grown up watching like King Kong and stuff like that and Godzilla movies and seeing, on a weekly basis, stop motion dinosaurs and some puppets. But I mean, the stop motion was for a television budget was pretty damn good. It is some
Pretty
cool
good
stuff. And I don't know if you guys mentioned this but there's a book that came out last year called Land of the Lost, Bringing Dinosaurs to Life. And it's a whole book about how the visual effects were done for the show. I've not read it myself, but I'm really curious too.
Well, I know because we're doing a panel. We're doing a panel at Star Trek Las Vegas 50 on the Land of the Lost 50th anniversary. And we have a bunch of the cast, and we wanted to get that guy, but he does not leave Los Angeles. He said he will not leave California.
Oh, okay.
So he won't come to Vegas.
Harry
is
Walton is his name,
yeah.
by the way. Yeah.
And it was really sad because we would have loved to have had him on that panel. But we will have David Gerald, who was the story editor, which is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories at a WonderCon about 10 years ago or so, Wesley Uri, is that how his name is spelled?
Yes,
Uri?
yeah.
And Kathy Coleman, who played Holly, had a booth.
Coleman.
And they were selling, Wesley sold me what he claimed was his original lunchbox that they gave him from Land of the Lost, and they had both signed it along with David Gerald and somebody else. So I have an autographed vintage Land of the Lost.
Yeah,
lunch.
And then you walked away, and the next guy said, "This is my absolutely," brings up another lunchbox, my last lunchbox.
He had a whole box of them in his garage. And he's
he's making.
I don't care if it was or not, but I bought it from him, and he signed it. So
His
that's
actual lunch was in it.
Well, there's
I'm
a
going to
great
sign your sandwich, kid.
And oddly enough, the Twinkie was still edible.
There's a great story about Wesley that Kathy Coleman tells in this panel. So I think without any further ado, let's take a listen to Sid Krofft, Kathy Coleman, and kind of the Decksperts, a little bit saying a few things here and there. And we hope you'll enjoy it. So stay tuned after these brief commercial messages, and we'll be back with a few closing thoughts.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Welcome to the Land of the Lost. This was our Jurassic Park before there was Jurassic Park. I actually like Land of the Lost better than Jurassic Park. But we are so thrilled. We've never had we specifically wanted to do this panel because we love these shows so much. And we were thrilled to see that GalaxyCon was bringing them to Richmond. First, it's one of the stars of Land of the Lost. You know, Marshall, Will, and Holly. Oh, we have a slee stack. Look at that.
That's it. I'm out.
Wow. Right in front of me. That's not Enig, is it? The Sleeve Stack from the future? No, it's not Enig. Okay. Yeah, okay. Oh, well, look at that. This is exciting. I've never been so close to one of these guys before. But we're so thrilled to welcome, you know her as Holly from Land of the Lost, KATHY Coleman. And one of the co-creators of the creative and business force behind a huge empire, whether it was Lidsville, H&R Puff and Stuff, the Bugaloos, so many other things, and of course, Land of the Lost. It's the great Sid Krofft. Sid, come on out.
You know, the first time I came to your city, whoops, wait a minute. My leg won't go under it. Was 1946. And I came here just for one day with the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, when the Big Top sat 15,000 people. Did you know that?
Wow.
And the show, they had 1,800 people in the show. But I wasn't in the Big Top. I was in the sideshow, what they call the freak show. As the world's youngest puppeteer, I'm just turning 15 years old. I quit school because my dad said, oh my God, they offered you $50 a week. We're going to be millionaires. And they didn't allow my parents to come with me. And it was probably the most frightening part of my life, because the circus, I know when we were all kids, we wanted to run away with the circus. No, you don't want to. It is really, really dark. And someday I hope that story will be told, you know. And then the second time I came, there was a theater here called the Lowe's Theater, and they had vaudeville. And I played there with George Burns and Gracie Allen. Can you believe that? And that was also in the 40s, but the late 40s. And then we're looking in my archives, because not only was I in vaudeville, burlesque, circus, but I also played nightclubs. And, you know, all the clubs in the country were run by mafia.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time. And we can't find the exact name of the club, but I've been here 3 times and I'm back 95 years old. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We're so glad to have you here, by the way.
Well, thank you. And I know you have a lot of questions, and, you know, please, I'm going to answer whatever you ask me. And as you know, I've been in this business since I'm 10 years old. So I got a lot of stories, a lot of background. And one thing that I'm going to say right up top that's really important to me, because people are always, all through the years, ask me, can you give me some advice? And here I am, 10 years old. I saw my first puppet act, and I said, that's what I want to be forever. Self-taught. My family hated the idea. My dad said, you're a boy and you want to play with dolls? You know, well, hey, Dad, did pretty well. And so I knew in order to be a puppet act that young, I knew that I had to do something that got me 15 minutes of fame, because puppets are for little kids. That can't go too far, you know? And so I don't know where I got it from, but I know it belongs to me. And I have always said, not only to myself and my career, but everybody that has surrounded me, go left, because everybody wants to take the safe path. And I mean, you trip a couple of times, many times, but you learn more from that than you do stardom. And so that has always been, you know, my little saying, go left. When you have, thank you, when you have a creative idea and it's scary to you, complete it. See how far you can go with it. And look at all the stuff I've done. It's unbelievable. And Kathy, you know, I have to tell you a little story. When every year after Puffin Stuff, we never did a pilot. Never. Which was really weird, because after Puffin Stuff, because it became it went through the ceiling all over the world immediately. It wasn't like, oh, it might catch on in a year or whatever. Immediately, because it was so bizarre and so weird. And I got to tell you a secret. After I, of course, was in editing every second, because it was my baby and my story and my characters. And when it was done, I turned to Marty. Marty was the business end. And I said, Marty, we've been really kicking butt, and we're really doing well without television, which we know nothing about, absolutely zero. Yeah, I was on the Ed Sullivan Show, and but many times, and all those big variety shows, Jack Benny, and but you don't get to go back into the booth. You just do your act, and there are hundreds of people that take care of it, and so nothing, and the director's going to tell you, face right, take a bow, face, look into the camera. That's about all you know, and you don't have no clue. And so I said to Marty, after it's going to go on the air in a week, I said, Marty, I apologized. I've ruined our whole career, because this is for 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds. It's so psychedelic. It's so weird. It's so, what is a 5-year-old gonna, do with this or understand it? Witchy Poo, I didn't want her to be Margaret Hamilton. I wanted her to be a clown, but she was still scary to kids.
She was.
She slapped the hell out of all of her characters, and being a puppeteer, not to get off on another tandem, but being a puppeteer, I knew that all the characters that I created should really be puppets. But then I thought, if I could find 30 or more little people, the tiniest people I can find in the world, and put them in a costume, I don't need puppeteers and rods and tricks and, holes in the floor and whatever. So that was my idea. Everything was a huge crapshoot. And, it really was, because I was just acting like I knew what I was doing, and I didn't. I really didn't. But I made sure that everybody that surrounded me had a little respect for what I was trying to do, and not because the easiest thing is the easiest way out, right? Go right. And so, of course, it went on the air. Now, I'm a performer. 30 years I was in vaudeville and live theater before all of that. So the audience, you guys, you're going to tell me right away as a performer, you suck, get off stage, or you're great, or you're going to give me a standing ovation, or, you're going to know right away what the hell you have. Television, you're sitting in your house and you're looking at a little glass box, and the show, who's on the other side? You have no clue. And are they coming back? Are they turning it off? There's only 3 networks, so at that time. But we didn't do a pilot. They bought it because I had this huge book, art book, my art department made. I sat on the floor. The executives at NBC sat in a circle, and I was like a little kid telling them the story, because nobody reads, and just showing them the pictures, and that's how they bought it. Now, all 3 networks said, what's the next show? Oh my God, this is number 1. What's the next show? So every year I used to come up with another insanity, straitjacket show. So anyway, came the Bugaloos, and then Lidsville, the Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, which was huge. That segment was a huge show for us. And then I went blank for 2 years. I just couldn't come, because that was a lot of shows to come up with. And in between it, we were doing specials, and I was the head, the creative head of all the Six Flag parks, which I knew nothing about, because I had a puppet theater that's at 1,200 people. And this puppet theater did 9 to 12 shows a day live. And it was the number 1 attraction. And the guy that owned Six Flags, Angus Wynn, privately owned, said, I'd like to put you in business. You can build our rides and everything. I said, I don't know anything about that. He said, yes, you do. I can see the kind of people that are surrounding you and the talent, and you're going to be able to pull in a hell of a group of people. Okay, back to Land of the Lost. Now,
I was wondering when you were going to get back to me. I've been waiting.
Well, you know what? You have to stop me. And Kelly's here.
I hope we'll be able to get you to come out of your shell a little bit.
Yeah. Because I've got so many stories. Yeah. Somebody mentions a word, a name of a movie star, I've got a story to tell you. I've been around since Lincoln was the president. Come on.
Sid, I want to ask you something very specific that you probably haven't been asked much about before.
I bet I have.
Well, after the success of Puff and Stuff, you guys were approached by McDonald's.
Oh, boy.
And you guys did the serious development of what was later called McDonaldland.
It was totally McDonaldland. It was totally
McDonaldland. But they dropped you guys and went on without you. And there was a big Sturm und Drang over that.
And we won.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, what happened was Six Flags, just to go back, and I'll do it real fast, put us in business. Yeah. And what we call the show business factory. We had 250 people working there. Remember? Every department, the greatest talent on the planet. I personally was running the whole show because I was the creative guy, right? So all day long, Sid, that's, questions that I had to answer immediately and couldn't stall. So I asked Six Flags, after we delivered everything to their parks, can I please not let everybody go? I love what I'm doing for a living. So please, can I keep my doors open? And they said yes. And then everybody came. Hanna-Barbera, Ringling Brothers, Ice Capades, Earth, Wind and Fire, the Jackson 5. Everybody was coming, to have something built. and the Queen Mary arrived, and I was the head to, what they wanted to know what to do with it, right? And so stuff like that. Okay, so anyway, I was on overdrive. Anyway, we get a letter from Chicago, the agency for all the McDonald's. We are thinking of doing McDonald Land. They called it McDonald, a la Puffin stuff. Wrong words to put in writing, right? Yeah. And so we went to court. I've never been to court. I've seen it in movies. I knew I had to wear a top and I couldn't have a hat. That's about all I know. And of course, they put me on the stand first. And even though we only had one lawyer, they had 5. And because it was hard to find a copyright infringement, there wasn't such a thing, lawyer. And that, and he prompted me, but I wasn't even listening to him because I know my life. He didn't have to tell me what to say. And I get on the stand and there's a jury and they swear me in. And I said, do you know when I was 10 years old?
I went to the left.
And the judge said, Mr. Krofft, nobody asks you a question. Only answer the questions. Where's Kelly? Oh, Kelly. Yeah, everybody knows Kelly. If you watch my show every Sunday on Instagram, I'm on for a whole hour at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock your time. And we do a whole hour. It's great. You'll hear the greatest stories. I've been on for 5 years. Anderson Cooper watches it every week. It's like, no, it's so much fun. No piece of paper, nothing. And boy, do I never shut up. Okay, so anyway.
So you're on the stand.
I'm on the stand. And every day that I came in, I wear pretty wild clothes. Okay, so anyway, when I came in, the jury would always smile at me. Yeah, because they had kids. Yeah. And McDonald's were poisoning their kids. Yeah. And so anyway, thank you. That's what I needed. When you get old, you drool. And so, I don't know. It took a month, and then we won, and we won a huge amount. But the judge only gave us. The judge changed the figure because in those days, judges were working with, and they gave us only $1 million. And you should have heard what the number was from the jury, right? But that was cool, And my brother went to Hawaii and bought a house that I never lived in.
So when did Land of the Lost premiere? Was that 73?
1974.
Yeah, I want to ask you, because it was such an ambitious show in a time when Saturday morning shows were not very ambitious. And you had a concept, but to execute it, to send it to another world with aliens, pylons, dinosaurs. I mean, to take this on and it's one thing to conceive it, right? It's one thing to come up with the idea. It's another thing to make it, especially on a limited budget with limited resources.
$60,000 an episode. 60. Today, it would be, 20 million. What does White Lotus?
I would love to see the White Lotus version of Land of the Lost, by the way.
And so, it's a half hour. That's 23 minutes of material. Okay. When it did happen, and the idea came from Swiss Family Robinson, the big thing was Planet of the Apes at that time, and I had these books that a friend of mine who worked at 20th Century Fox, who lives in New York, he did collages, the most incredible collages. And I thought that would be a new way to present my books to the network without doing a pilot. And he was staying at my house, and I have a huge collection of books. And he saw a bunch of these books, said, can I look through them? And I was standing behind him watching them. And there was one all on dinosaurs. And I said, oh my God, wait a minute. 1940, the third movie I ever saw was 1 million BC, Victor Mature, where they weren't even dinosaurs. They were blown up, lizards, yeah. And they ate people, and it was a horror movie. It was really a horror movie. But it stuck in my mind. And when I saw the dinosaurs, I went, that's it. That was it. And I went into my art department right away, and I started, really kicking ass with everybody, because I got more excited, more Planet of the Apes, Chaka, had to have that kind of a character, and we couldn't afford 3 flea stacks. 3, that's all we could afford, and the Picuni family, there were only 4.
3.
Yeah. Well,
Saw and Chaka.
And Chaka, I'm sorry. Well, that's what I know.
They were my neighbors. I knew.
I know it. And how did Kathy happen? Oh my God. Okay, I just got the order. I don't jump with any of the shows or have calls out or anything. I really have to think of my characters, because the characters have to deliver the stories, even the little characters, the little guys. They got to have a story too. If you're going to do a whole series, you got to have a lot of stories going on. So somebody brought Wesley it was a Sunday. I never have a lot of people at my house to go swimming. And I don't know, it was Bruce Ostrander. Remember Bruce? Yeah. Who, was the contractor for my house, brought Wesley because they both lived in Palm Springs, right? And I'm looking at Wesley, we're talking the whole day. He's already on a big soap. He's already a star, And at the end of the day, I said, here's a phone number. I want you to call tomorrow morning and tell them I'll take care of it. They'll know who you are before the call comes in, because I had a casting woman. I never had a casting woman. I casted everything myself, couldn't afford it. I found Witchy Poo, I found Jimmy, I found, all those great, great characters. They were all friends of mine, begging them, please do a little kiddie show. And then they said, you're going to ruin my career, And so anyway, and then Wesley went in, and the casting lady said, whoa, this is Will, yeah. And I said, Wesley and the casting lady, I want you to pick Holly because that's your sister, And Wesley picked Holly. I mean, we always had some kind of a horseshoe because up our what? Because I got to tell you something. Star Trek was canceled and all the writers were out of work. I approached them and they said, yeah, well, there's more to the story because David, much more to the story. But they said...
Yeah, you brought in Dorothy Fontana.
But this is a kid show.
Yeah.
I mean, what could we pay them? $1.98, an episode? And so, but they loved the concept. Yeah. David Gerald, was just a kid. He was the showrunner, the head writer. He was just 20 1 year old or something, right? I loved that because I used to take kids out of art school and, because their brains are strong and their creativity. You want to listen to what they have to say, and not repeat yourself with someone that just goes right all the time.
Well, people don't realize all the connections to Star Trek. Not only David Gerrold, but writers like Larry Niven who worked on it. But then you had Herman Zimmerman, who became the production designer,
who did the
Next
movies,
Generation, who did, and Michael Westmore, who did the makeup. I mean, so many Star Trek connections to Land of the Lost.
Yeah, and they all because
Walter Koenig. He was Chekhov. He created Enoch.
Yeah, he wrote that episode.
And we see him every year at the Star Trek convention, and Walter's kind of now, he looks like a little begrudging kind of person. And he goes by our table and he goes, "Damn, that's Marty Krofft. Should have got residuals. I should have got residuals for Enoch. Enoch was mine."
It's Land of the Lost checks, is what it is.
No, it was tough. And after we finished the first episode, television is not like a movie. You make a movie 3 years ago and it's opening tomorrow. Television, you made it last week. And now you're making a new one and a new one and a new one each week. And you're doing 2 a week. And you have a whip out. And especially Marty, because the cash register is going a mile a minute.
There was no clowning around.
No.
And when we did clown around every once in a while, we seemed to always get caught. Like Spencer.
Not for me, because
one time you guys did catch us. We were doing a scene where we were being chased by the slee stacks. And so we needed to dive into the pond to get to the Lost City. And so we were going to run to the pond and strip down. And we were supposed to at least have bathing suits on underneath our clothes. Well, Spencer got with the art department and had them paint a slot machine on his chest. And so we got up to the pond and Wesley and I are ripping our clothes. We knew about this, but the joke was supposed to be for the crew. It was just supposed to get a laugh from the crew.
Marty.
And you two show up with the head execs of NBC. And we're like, oh my God, and they're like, this is what you're doing with this budget, and clowning around. This is film and tape that is running simultaneously, and the cost of that was so expensive.
And the slee stacks were not pleased either.
No, but thank God it was Spencer that was pulling it and not us.
Well, Kathy, there's a famous thing with all the people who do green screen where they're like, particularly with Star Wars, they said, "Oh, you can write this stuff, but you can't say it." But I wonder if because you were a kid and you're not seeing any of the stuff that would be added later with stop motion, was it easier to imagine what you were going to see and act to that? Or was it harder because so much of the Land of the Lost wouldn't come until later in post?
Well, it's funny because as long as it was on videotape, like the director would say, okay, we'd be standing on the chroma key wall. And they'd say, that light right there is grumpy. You're going to stop here, look at that light, turn around, and run off the stage. That was easy. And it looked believable on the screen. But if you took a still shot of it, I swear, it's like none of us heard the one direction, look there and run that way. The still is somebody's looking over here, somebody's looking out there, Our eyes are in like 6 different, places. But it was fairly easy. We had little discs on the floor that, we had markers to.
It was an experiment because that was never done before. What we did. Yeah. And oh my God.
When I rode the dinosaur, they built a cylinder, a big blue chroma key cylinder, and then they had it on a rope, and they were having to blend. You guys had to bring in people from Disney to help you with this because it was such a difficult technical maneuver. They were running film and video at the same time.
And you couldn't do that.
They were
impossible.
I'm sitting on the blue dinosaur that's this color blue, this chroma key color. And they've got a rope and the guys are pulling me slowly and they're trying to put the dinosaur in between my legs, and the cylinder at the same speed, and they were trying to blend it and they were getting really frustrated. I was having an okay time because I'm a horsewoman. So it was like riding a horse, but anyway, yeah, they finally brought the Disney guys in, and they were able to figure out how to
marry the two together. But it wasn't as simple as that. We really thought it wasn't going to work for days, and it was going to air in a few days.
Was you're really too special right here.
We need some questions.
Okay, well, does anybody have a?
We got questions.
We got a few more questions for it. Well, just in terms of Kathy, you suddenly found yourself being idolized by a whole generation of people watching at home. It was very popular and continued to be. And meanwhile, the world of Sid Marty Krofft was touring and doing shows. You were on lunchboxes. What was that like to, at your age, to suddenly be thrust into the limelight and the spotlight?
It was work. So at work, you have like Sid was saying, on television, you don't get that instant feedback.
It goes so fast, and you have to wait for response. Yeah.
So I didn't have it. I was going to school on the set. I was working, and so I didn't know how it was being received out there. So believe it or not, these shows that we do, these conventions, are really like absolutely wonderful for me because first of all, you 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds will come to the table and you do, I see magic all the time. You fall into 8-year-old little children right before my eyes. And I can feel it. And you bring me right with you. And I am 8 years old or 10 years old or 12 or whatever I was. And you guys were both children again. And you're sharing with me what it was like to be on the other side of that screen. It was just a piece of technology between us. I was here and you were there. But at the moment when we do these shows, we're both in the living room at the same time, So I enjoy hearing how it affected them.
You stole my words, because this is the only reason. I mean, come on, my age, for me to make a trip like this, but it's just to meet you guys.
Yeah, it's exciting.
To listen to your heart.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like reborn, And so it's amazing. It's just amazing.
Well, you helped us grow up. You helped us along the way, and that's it's magical.
I didn't even realize it when I was doing it. It was just...
Well, good. You probably would have got a big swelled head about it.
No, people always say to me that have known me so many years, you never change. Why am I supposed to? What do you mean I never change? I have a mirror. I change.
You, Sid, had the unwelcome, thankless task for any producer of a show when Spencer left and you had to replace him. But it was really challenging. Like when David Caruso wants to leave NYPD Blue, fine, you bring in a new cop, right? That's easy. But you're stranded on an alien world, completely disconnected from Earth. And it's a family show, as you said, Swiss Family Robinson. What was that like for you, and how daunting was it to have to replace
it was David that put that together. It was David Gerald that came up with the idea, like however he constructed that new story.
You had to write a whole new song.
The uncle was coming in, and we got away with it. We really got away with it. But because, in telling you earlier, television is so quick and you've got to make adjustments, people not feeling well coming to work. You can't stop production. You just got to keep going. The little people drove everybody crazy. You could never find them. They were always running around a lot. There was one that was a born-again Christian from Russia, and he would run around the Paramount lot, and all the other studios try to convert everybody. And it was like, and his first shot, he's holding his Bible in his costume. And I said, you didn't understand English. We had to have all kinds of, different people to feed them. And they stayed at the Roosevelt Hotel, and they had to redo the beds and the sinks and the toilets. And, no, it was a trip. I have a lot of great stories to tell about the little people, but he couldn't understand why in the shot he couldn't be holding his Bible.
There's a great word, earworm. It's not just applying to SETI yells, but to a music you can't get out of your head. And if there's a classic earworm, it's certainly the Land of the Lost main title theme. Can you tell us a little bit about how that got put together and what it means to you today when you hear that song? You're probably sick of it. But
well, I know that Wesley, you sang the theme song. He sang them all, the opening, the closing. Anytime a new family member would join the show, time to rewrite it. We need another song.
No, Wesley was great.
So, yeah, he did a fabulous job. And he worked with the Osmonds in the production of it. And he and I sing that song a billion times.
But the original song was written by a girl that lived in the Valley who was the best friend of Alan Foshko, who helped me put the concept together, who did the collages. Thank you.
Well, then I need her number because everybody asked me.
I don't think she's with us anymore.
Oh, well, somebody related to her. I have to blame them because everybody asked me, why does the song go Marshall, Will, and Holly when your last name is Marshall?
Right.
And so I really don't have a good answer for that.
Because Rick is only one syllable.
Yeah.
Don't ask questions when it comes to that. Hey, come on, you guys. You're sitting there.
Well, let's open it up to questions. There's a mic right there. So if you want to get behind the mic. And it doesn't just have to be Land of Lost. I know the panel's Land of Lost, but H.R. Puffin stuff.
I want to know more about Lidsville, personally.
Scared me off hats for
I want to know what HR stood for in HR Puffin.
Okay.
It's folded at the top. So
I know it. Puffin stuff, the network turned that down. They said it was too feminine. It's a powder puff. I said, oh, really? Yeah. And I talked them into it because Puff the Magic Dragon was the big hit song of that year. So it came from Puff. He was a dragon. Puff didn't look big enough to me. He's the mayor of Living Island. So he's the Royal Highness, right? And I turned the two letters around, and that's how that honestly happened. And
honestly?
Honest.
Okay.
And for years...
We've heard other stories.
No, you're going to hear that. Okay, I'll answer that one. For years and years, we've always been asked, were you on drugs? And a few years ago at Comic-Con in San Diego, which we were doing for 50 years when there were 50 people when it started, and we do a panel, and it's always in the huge auditorium, packed with adults wanting to hear the same dumb stories over and over again. And so I got up a few years ago and I said, okay, now I'm going to answer a question that you've asked the both of us for a zillion years. But this is my answer. I don't know anything about Marty's personal life. And so I said, if 3 presidents said they did not inhale, I did, okay? Well, forget it. They were my friends for life. Oh my God. I thought they were going to rip the seats out of the auditorium. Yeah.
See, when we hear that, we feel a lot better about everything. Because Puff the Magic Dragon was about marijuana.
Wow.
So, and it's okay. There's no judgment anymore. We're all good.
It's legal now.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to get arrested.
No, not at all.
The prisoner has a question.
Sure thing. I'm Tim, and I only recently realized how lucky I was in this window of time. But when I was a kid, my family went from Oklahoma to Atlanta, Georgia, and got to see the World of Sid and Marty Krofft amusement park. And only recently realized just how briefly that was opened. But I was just wondering, because I thought it was really amazing and I have wonderful memories of that. I wonder if you could share something on that.
A lot of people, really shed a lot of tears for me because that was my baby and they thought it was going to break my heart. I didn't look at it that way. Just to get the opportunity, I'll never forget the night it opened. Huge opening. The symphony orchestra, Peggy Fleming skated. What the hell was her name? That sang God Bless America. Yeah, Kate Smith sang God Bless America. Every star in Hollywood was there. But right before, in all black tie and tie, it had an escalator, 9 stories. No stop, 9 stories. Never be another one. They just tore it down a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
There'll never be another one like it. Okay, so I'm down at the bottom of the escalator. And there's a big sign, The World of Sid Marty Krofft, before you get on the escalator. And I'm standing there with Marty, and I'm bawling. And I said, wow, look at this. My name's up there. It ran 9 months because it was way down at the bottom of Atlanta. The crime was all there at the Omni. And they promised us that they were going to clean up the mayor and the governor and everything. And people were scared to death. It was only $5 to go. And it was really a trip because when you went up that escalator and you got to the top, there were 50-foot harlequins that you walked under their feet and this big grand curtain. And there was an old man with a beautiful tropical bird, live bird on. And everybody got their face painted with a little flower. And then these curtains opened up, and big groups at a time would go through into the world. And there was a pinball ride. You got on a pinball. There was a carousel that was 3 stories, all made out of crystal, mythological. People, I see guys take their shirts off because it was so beautiful just to ride it. No, it was amazing. But the best part about it was everybody that worked there was a performer. So everybody performed for you. Wherever you went, there was a show just for you and your family. No, it only ran 9 months. It was cool. It was 1974 or whatever it was. And then we did, Donnie Marie and the Brady Bunch. And it just kept going. It was just crazy. But what an honor. That's it.
Because people don't realize you did those Donnie and Marie specials and then all those Brady Bunch variety hours as well.
Yeah, and Barbara Mandrell, the Mandrell sisters, Pink Lady.
And Jeff.
That show's in a time capsule. That is voted in Hollywood as the worst show of television. So they put it in. So 200 years from now, they're going to find it somewhere in Hollywood.
What show?
It was called Pink Lady and Jeff. It was these 2 Japanese women that didn't speak English, a word. And this
comedian Jeff Altman.
Yes, Jeff Altman was the comedian. It was really bizarre. But you know what?
It was
it went
memorable.
down in history.
It's memorable.
When Sid Krofft says it's really bizarre, it's really.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. No, you're saying when Sid says it's really bizarre, it's really bizarre.
And you know, where did all that come from? I told you earlier, I was in vaudeville.
Yeah.
That's Donnie Marie was a big vaudeville show.
Sure.
I was in an ice show next to Radio City Music Hall for a whole year. It was the sister theater of Radio City. And it was the Sonia Henney show. There were 150 people in the cast. I walked away with all the reviews. No one ever saw a puppet act on ice skates. What the hell was that? I went left.
Okay. Hi, my name is Thomas from Virginia Beach. I'm one of those kids with the metal lunchbox from Land of the Lost when I was in first grade. What was the biggest prank you got away with besides the slot machine? I heard about that one. What was the biggest prank you pulled that no one caught you in during the Land of the Lost?
Well, it was Chaka and I. And it wasn't really a prank, and it wasn't really...
They're kids, you know, they're just kids.
Well, we got wind, because nothing like... We were connected with the prop master, so we had ears everywhere, you know, for us. And so we were always, you know, well connected. We got wind one day that Wesley was getting, it was his birthday, and he was getting a massage. A woman that was going to come in and give him a massage in his dressing room. Well, on the set, the dressing rooms didn't have ceilings. So they were just the four walls, but then they were all connected in an L shape. But no ceilings on them. So Phil and I, Chaka, got the prop master to lend us his ladder. and we put it up against the outside of Wesley's wall. And on lunch, when he was getting his massage, Phil and I climbed up the top of the ladder, and Wesley was going, oh, on the bed, you know. He's got a towel, you know, at his waist, but he didn't have a shirt on, and the girl's rubbing his back, and he's going, oh. And so Phil and I are going, at the top. And Wesley said, he looks up and he goes, all I see are these four eyes peering over the top like that.
Thank God Marty didn't walk in.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kevin, and I by the way, Pink Lady is on YouTube. All 6 of them, yeah. And I saw them the first time, and they were great. The beautiful women on there. But anyway, I want to thank Sid. I only found this out years later. You created the Banana Splits. It was my favorite show as a kid. And can you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay, when we opened up our doors to the public, Six Flags let me do it. Hanna-Barbera came first. And they said, we got an idea. We do animated, you know, of course we all knew Hanna-Barbera. And we've got an idea to do these characters in suits, and you guys build stuff like that. So I, with my art department, designed them. My puppeteers kept getting in them to see how they work. And that's it. And we delivered them. And then we had all those shows at the amusement parks, and we shot a lot of the Banana Splits at Kings Island, because we had shows in every park for Coca-Cola. So then the network came to me and said, Sid, you're insane. Come up with an idea. We'll buy it right away. Why don't you have your own show on television? I said, what's it going to be? You know, a kid show? I don't know. Because even the puppet shows at Six Flags, I was dealing with teenagers that wanted to get on 90 death rides. What the hell were they going to come in and see a puppet show?
They wanted puff and stuff.
Yeah, don't fool with me, because I would create shows that were, you know, you had to come and people stood in line for hours. They were psychedelic as hell. And so, that's how that happened. And then Puffin Stuff was a show at the San Antonio World's Fair for Coca-Cola in the Coca-Cola Pavilion.
Right.
And he wasn't called Puffin Stuff. He was a dragon. He didn't have arms, but they were all musicals, but they had a little thin story to it. And all those characters came from that show. It was called Kaleidoscope. Puffin Stuff's first name was Luther, because I thought that was funny in Texas with a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, with a religious name like that. He became the symbol of the fair. And so he was a hot character. So that's how that all happened. And then the Bugaloos, the Bugaloos. You know who picked the Bugaloos? I'll tell you real fast. On the last day in London, auditioned 4,000 kids. Mick Jagger came in and picked those 4 kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
It all makes sense now.
All of it. No, it doesn't. No. Hey, everybody, do we still have time?
Yeah, we have time for a few more questions. Go ahead.
So the Land of the Lost sleeve stacks, they scared the living daylights out of me.
Thank God. That's what I wanted to do.
Behind Mama's reading chair and peek and watch it. So how did you make 3 basketball players so daggone scary?
So scary?
So scary. How did you
make them so scary?
Well, it's crazy. And I don't, the first show we shot at the Henson Studios, right? On La Brea. Then we moved over to the old one because the stage wasn't big enough. Do you remember that?
Of course.
Because it had a pool.
On Las Palmas.
Yeah.
It was called General Services when we worked
there. We
Hollywood
moved over
Center.
there for the second show.
And now it's Hollywood Center, but it used to be Charlie Chaplin Studios.
Yeah.
And Glen Sound was right behind us. So when
But that was of the second show, not the first. What you would call a pilot, which wasn't a pilot, was shot on that little sound stage at Jim Henson's Charlie Chaplin Studios. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, we had 2 sound stages, though, back then.
They nodded at Charlie Chaplin only had 1 sound stage. And that's when we shot the Sleeve Stacks. And the director, I don't remember who it was, came to me and said, the stage is so small. How is Holly, going to run away? It's not scary. Where are they running to? And so I said, it's like a dream. We all have it. It's got to be slow motion. Yeah. And they just can't get to you. And that is scary. And that's how it worked. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with you. They were scary as hell.
I do have one question for you, Mr. Krofft. I grew up back in 1974, and I was very young at the time. And I watched a certain special in late October that year. I think it was either 73 or 74. And I remember a certain person from Hollywood Squares being the host of that show. So the question, and that's when you mentioned Margaret Hamilton, my question to you is, in that special, how did you get the #1 rock band in the country to come to that special?
Yeah, everybody, have you seen the Halloween Paul Lynde special? If you haven't, it's a classic because Witchy Poo and Margaret Hamilton together in that. And I suggested the Kiss to the network, and they said, oh my God, 8 o'clock, absolutely not, but don't screw with me because I fight right to the end. And I knew it was going to, give us a lot of points. And that's what it's all about, getting a rating. Right. And that show, Margaret Hamilton, I approached to do Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. I had 2 scripts. There was a crazy lady next door that kept seeing the monster but nobody in town would believe her. And I called her in Connecticut, and she was retired. And she said, I'm retired, I can't come to Hollywood. And I kept talking her into it like everybody else. And she said, the only way I'll come is if I could meet Witchy Poo. She's the best witch in the world. And so Billy Hayes got in her costume. We went to the airport together and we picked up Margaret Hamilton.
Oh my goodness.
Can you imagine?
Did she bring the vroom broom?
And so that's how, and then I got Margaret to do that special because she loved Billy Hayes.
Oh, that's so
They
sweet.
were just like sisters. And that's what they played, in that scene. It's priceless. If you really, television is hard to laugh at because they put a damn laugh track. They open the door, ha ha ha, close the door, ha ha. It's not funny. It's never funny. I don't know why. We're not stupid, And so, but you will laugh your butt off. That's a funny show.
Thank you, sir.
This next question has to be the last one, unfortunately.
Yes, and then they're closing up.
So thank you for my childhood. I loved all of your shows. It was my afternoon when I would come home from school. I would always watch the Krofft Superstars hour, and it was always something different. So my question is this. First of all, I hated the flute. I thought the flute was like the most annoying thing on the planet.
Freddie. Yeah,
Literally hated the flute.
Freddie the flute.
Really annoying flute. But my question is this. So I grew up to be a parent that turned my kids on to shows that I think I sort of gelled into because of my Krofft Superstars stuff, because my kids were really into Yo Gabba Gabba. And I'm wondering, have you ever seen any of the more current sort of shows that I think sort of harken back to those days of the Sid and Marty Krofft sort of era?
No, I don't. Even when
Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Thank you, Pee Wee's Playhouse. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Paul, very close friend of mine. Yeah. And no, because even all three networks would say to me, Sid, do you watch your competition? I said, no. Why? Because if I do, they're going to throw me off. Yeah. I don't want to copy anybody. You want something different? I'm not watching. I don't care what you got on the air,
Well, they were no competition for you.
No.
Thank you so much. Well,
the bad news is this panel's over, but the good news is they'll be at their booth the rest of the weekend, so you can see Kathy and Sid and get their autographs and check that out.
Kathy Coleman, thank you so much.
Well, thank you too, everybody. Thank you.
Well, there you go. Another great episode of Deck 78. So great to have the Decksperts here. And we hope you'll join us in 2 weeks for another great episode of Deck 78. Deck 78 is part of the Treksperts Podcast Network. Copyright 2025 by Treksperts Plus. Executive producers Mark A. Altman, Darren Docterman, Ashley Edward Miller, and Steven Melching. The show is produced by Peter Holmstrom, Brian Mix. Original music by Darren Docterman. And sound mixing by the great Mark Rivera. You can open hailing frequencies and request future guests at trekspertsplus@gmail.com. Doesn't mean we'll listen to you, but you can try. And you can also subscribe to this and other great Treksperts shows and Glorious Treksperts or 430 Movie, your favorite podcast providers. Please rate and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you don't miss a single episode. So I think, we've had our Pan-Galactic Gargle Blasters and our Sumerian Sunsets and our Canar. And I think it's time to say goodbye. Our Ragdagino, our port.
Starboard. Ragdagino damn near killed a Gino.
So so I think we're going to get off Deck 78 and, return to the bridge. But we'll see you in 2 weeks right back here at Deck 78. And we look forward to you joining us for another great episode. So on behalf of Steven Melching, Ashley Edward Miller, Darren Doctorman, myself, Mark A. Altman, fire the rockets.
Deck 78 is an exclusive podcast from Decksperts Plus.